Hello everyone, it's Jake from Talk Too Much, and I'm proud to present a new series called First Time Watches. Now, I don't have the most information in the world about movies, and there's a lot of classics that me at 24 years old have not seen. So I figured I'd go through, give a first time watch on some of these movies over the years. And the first one I started out with was Kill Bill. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've never really been the biggest Quentin Tarantino fan. And I'm saying that based off of someone who tried to watch Pulp Fiction, watched it for the first 30 minutes at 16 years old, turned it off and said, I can't get into this. This is just not for me. Now, 8 years later, I decided, at some point I'm going to have to take the jump, and I decided to go for Quentin Tarantino's movies one by one by one. And especially after going to go see They Will Kill You, it was like, everybody keeps saying this is so much like Kill Bill. And I was like, all right, y'all have nagged me enough. I'm just going to go watch it and see how it goes. And luckily, I was kind of in a surprise for this. Now, I've only seen, like I said, the first 30 minutes of Pulp Fiction. Other than that, the only movie I saw before Kill Bill was Jackie Brown, in which I love Jackie Brown. I thought that was phenomenal. I was kind of in shock where I was like, whoa, where has this been my whole time? But then going into Kill Bill, I felt a little bit more positive. I was like, maybe Quentin does have something here that I just haven't been exactly seeing this whole entire time. And maybe now I'm finally going to acknowledge and see why does everybody love him so much, and go from here. And I'm happy to say that with Kill Bill Volume 1, and I'll get into Volume 2, but with Volume 1 alone, I had a pretty good time with it. I thought the action sequences were sick. The whole samurai sword, everything, the fight choreography was phenomenal. I didn't really watch much of Uma Thurman's movies. I didn't have any background knowledge to her. And in fact, the only thing I've seen her in prior to Kill Bill was when she appeared in Dexter Resurrection Season 1. And then everybody was like, oh my God, Uma Thurman's in Dexter Resurrection. I was like, oh, the main Kill Bill girl? Okay. All right. And that was my introduction to her. So seeing her 22 years previously in these two movies back to back was kind of a shock. I was like, okay, I'm understanding why she was cast in certain roles. I understand the hype behind her, and I'm fully on board for it. So starting out with my positives, I did kind of already go into this. I think Uma Thurman's an amazing lead. Once I started figuring out what the story was and how this is a bride that is looking for vengeance after her failed wedding that happened because of Bill, I was all in. I was like, okay. And the back and forth between the black and white and to reality kind of helped with this me gravitate towards the situation and understanding her training, everything she's been through, what all was leading to this moment where she's like, I need to hunt for Bill. Another positive I have to say is they very much amped up the fight, where even though it was just simple weaponry and they just went all Carnage Candy for the first film, and I loved that. I loved how Uma Thurman, she only has a samurai sword, and like 50 other men are coming into the room, and she's just looking at all of it like, okay, I'm going to literally give you a chance to leave. If not, every single one of you is going to die. And I thought that was a real badass moment. I heavily enjoyed that with the movie. So you already got a great story, you got a great cast, all the fight scenes, everything like that, I was fully on board with. And honestly, I can safely say my only negative that I did have for this movie was that I just kind of wish we had more story, more background, and we took more from Volume 2 and applied it to Volume 1. Rather than having them split. But I understand why you can't have a 4.5 hour long movie going into your movie theaters at the current time, which I'll get to more of that. And with that being said, now I'm going to get into Kill Bill Volume 2. Kill Bill Volume 2, it definitely took a different direction than I was expecting. It pulled back the action, and it was like, okay, everybody's going to get full details after the cliffhanger that was from Volume 1, and we're going to explain the whole story, explain how everything has worked out, who Bill is, why Bill is such an important person to the bride's life, BB. And I was very much interested, but I was kind of like, okay, I'm like less interested than I was in the beginning, but I understand why you're having to do this. And so the action was toned back a lot. There was still some, and there was still some incredible fight scenes in this movie. But if you're going into volume two after seeing volume one and you're just like, oh yeah, we're going to amp up more action, that's exactly not what you're going to get here. You're going to get more story driven, which I kind of liked. It gave a moment for Uma Thurman to breathe and focus more on the acting part, more of the dialogue, in which I actually thought Quentin's dialogue worked a lot here. I was very hesitant where I was like, is this a man who only has fight choreography and shots behind him, or does he actually have a good script behind him? And that he does bring in volume two, even though I was a little less interested. And I did get pulled away a little bit when it was less action driven. I didn't find that to be the worst part about the movie. I just kind of was like, okay, it created more of an emphasis on what I was getting here. Starting out with the positives for volume two. Story wise, I think it does come in full circle. I like how they ended it. It did not need to be a whole, we're going to include a volume three in this or anything like that. It ended the way that it should have. I think if they would have kept going or teased that there would be a volume three, fans would rather get frustrated rather than enjoy these two parts that we got here. Another positive is, even though they brought down the fight scenes, there's not nearly as much. They still keep them at the same level of volume one, and I can really appreciate that, where it's more hand technique, not really going, yes, there's a samurai sword involved, but not nearly as much, other than the one big fight scene between Uma Thurman and one of Bill's henchmen, I guess you could say, which I thought was really, really cool. Going on to the negatives, this is about one of the movies, and this is a big thing I do tend to have with Quentin Tarantino as a huge problem. He likes to drive out the story a little bit longer than I feel like it needs to be. This movie was over 2 hours long, and it started to drag a little bit here and there. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, let's keep this going. Let's push this through. We're almost done here. And I didn't start to have that problem until about the middle section going into the back half. I was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of ready to check this out and go on. I'm not saying that this is bad or anything, but you're dragging a little bit here. And that's just the main problem I have with Quentin's movies, is that it feels like there's some times where he tends to drag more than he should. And that's what kind of pulls away from the experience. Now, I did not have any spoilers, nothing for Kill Bill. I went into it completely blind. I went into volume one completely blind. I went into volume two completely blind. So having both those experiences back to back, I understand the praise for this movie a lot more after watching it for the first time, and I can appreciate it for why it exists. I can understand why people are such a big fan of it. I can understand that people say that this is some of the best work in Quentin's catalog, and if that is the case, I'm in for a bumpy ride, I know, but I definitely do think it's one of his better works, and it has me going, okay, I may not be able to be the biggest fan in the world of Quentin Tarantino, but as long as I can understand why the man is praised and what he's doing, and this is a perfect example here, then I'll be on board for it. I can keep watching and keep going from there. Another big thing that kind of ticked in my head that wanted to make me watch this was the whole thing about, I believe at the end of last year, Quentin Tarantino released Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair. And everybody was saying, if you liked 1 and 2, you're going to love this whole entire thing. And so I do plan to check that out at some point. But I wanted to get the original first full-time experience watching these two movies back to back, rather than just watching The Whole Bloody Affair. Even though it probably would have worked a lot better, it would have been more cohesive. I still wanted to have the same experience that most fans have. So over here is going to be my rating for volume 1. Over here is going to be my rating for volume 2. I definitely think that volume 1 is stronger than volume 2. I still think, though, that these are a great batch of films. I have a lot of thoughts about Quentin, but we'll save that for another time. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this new segment. I started first time watches. I'm going to be doing like one of these a month, or try to, along with the underrated gems. So just want to get my thoughts out here, especially after seeing They Will Kill You. This very much sparked my interest. I'd give you some positive feeling. I definitely say stream it. I understand the classic and praise it for it. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know down below what you guys think about Kill Bill. Is it your favorite of his movies? Is it your least favorite? You like Volume 1, you like Volume 2 more? Which one is it? Let me know down below in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video.